Hello Internet, I'm the Disney Brain, and wow, it's been a few days, but I still can't believe it. 10,000 subscribers and rising. I am beyond grateful to all of you who continue to watch and support my content, seriously. I know I've said it before, but you guys truly are amazing, and your comments and analysis and passion have definitely made me a better person, and how could I even begin to repay all of that? For this 10K special, I've decided to take an old concept and frame it in a way that I'm more comfortable using. Most of you know what a draw my life is, but I can barely draw stick figures, quite honestly, so that idea would be a pretty bad one for me. But what I am pretty good at doing is using pictures to express specific thoughts and feelings. Heck, my first two analysis videos were nothing but pictures with barely any video, so what I decided to do was, well, to picture my life, a new take on a familiar idea. So, here goes nothing. I was born in a state known as Florida, also known these days as the state where all the mind-boggling headlines come from, but what can you do? I grew up as a very, very quiet kid. I didn't really have a lot of friends, and I was terrible at keeping most of the friends that I did have. I was one of those kids that found friends through TV shows I watched more so than the people I interacted with. When I was 6 or 7, more or less, I considered Keenan and Kel my friends because I loved watching them so much. I also considered Ash my friend because Pokemon became life-changing at the time, and the same can be said for shows like Dragon Ball Z, Digimon, Yu Yu Hakusho, and Power Rangers more so than anything else. Shows like that I didn't just grow up on, but helped shape a lot of who I am because, again, not much interpersonal experience to that point. It got to a point where I'd abhor doing anything organized or social because, well, it was keeping me away from seeing whether or not Ash would win that next gym badge. He always, did, of course, but back then it still felt somewhat suspenseful to a very young version of myself. So yeah, surprising probably very few of you, a heavily introverted overthinker like me, didn't exactly spend a lot of time around people growing up, but there was a reason behind all of that, or at least my attempt to retroactively analyze the decisions made by a much less mature version of myself. If you've seen enough of my Grow Meets World videos, then you'll know that Rileytown is by far the most affecting episode for me, and that's not by coincidence. I went through most of grade school being one of the shortest kids in my class, if not the shortest through most years, and I was constantly harassed and bullied by multiple individuals. A lot of it wasn't physical, but, it was just name-calling and all manner of insults, but, it hurts just the same, and if you've been through it, then, you can attest to that. But what really sucks about it was that the most imposing of said bullies was someone I actually considered a close friend just a year before all of this began. I spoke up to teachers, faculty, nobody really did anything. They all got slaps on the wrist for harassing me, but I retaliated once and got sent to the principal's office. So if there was ever a reason to willingly embrace the world of television and make-believe as a reprieve from the terrors of the real world, well, that would be it. But, unfortunately, it gets much worse. You see, when I was around 8 or 9, I guess I figured I'd turn the tables around in the most fiendish, inexcusable, deplorable way possible. I very literally became the bully. There was a tiny kid in summer camp that nobody ever really paid attention to until I came around, and for about 2 months I very regrettably made his life hell because, well, I guess because I could. And what's worse, so many campers joined in. To this day, I consider it one of the lowest points of my childhood, if not the lowest point of my childhood, and I would feel even more disgusted by it if we hadn't reconciled our differences the summer right after. As terrible as I was with people growing up, little me felt enough remorse to try and make amends with that kid that I bullied, and eventually, he not only forgave me, but we actually became pretty decent friends. Camp was a whole lot better after that. It no longer felt like a battleground with one kid in the center of it all. It started feeling like a real community, where people could just be themselves and have fun on field trips and talk to one another without mindless insults, which, for me, is the best kind of camp. It sucks that I became the problem for a bit there, but it sure felt nice to be part of the solution, if nothing else. It was in the aftermath of that very educational experience that I started developing the tools needed to make real friends. And that brings me to high school, where I did make real friends, some of which were just as into anime and more off-the-wall stuff just like me. But I wasn't exactly a pleasant person either. In my early days of high school, I wasn't a bully anymore for sure, but I was still something of a know-it-all jerk. I thought I knew everything, I thought I was smarter than everyone else, and nothing could have been further from the truth. I didn't really find my place until I joined a team, and not the kind of team that I'd been accustomed to that point. It was actually the math team. Yeah, I know, but I wear that title with honor because I genuinely loved it. Being on that team taught me lessons of hard work and sacrifice and being a team player, and maybe most importantly of all, the lesson of humility. Lessons that, ironically enough, I never really went out of my way to learn on sports teams because I was too busy avoiding being social and waiting to see whether or not Goku would survive Namek blowing up. That just seemed more important at the time. The math team and the people on it helped me to not just become the student that I needed to be, because my grades weren't exactly A pluses throughout the first 2 years of high school, but it helped me become the person that I am now. A person that's not nearly as full of himself or egomaniacal, or at least I really hope so, but someone who actually seeks to understand the perspectives of others and doesn't take things for granted. A complete 180 from what I was just a few years prior. This brings me to college and the more current days. They say you can be whoever you want to be once you go to college, and that is true to an extent. But I headed up north to the great state of Massachusetts to be not whoever, but be the best version of myself, and that version of myself gained lifelong friends, many of which I'm still close with today, and some of which are viewers among us. It was through college that the Disney brain was indirectly formed. You see, I didn't have Disney Channel in college because it just wasn't part of the cable we got as students, so I didn't even know about Austin and Ally until I went back home for the holidays. Heck, I didn't even know Lemonade Mouth existed until several months after it took over the musical charts back in 2011. But then I watched it the summer after, and I was awe-inspired. I realized that I was missing out, so even when I didn't have Disney Channel in college, I kept track of and watched the DCOMs that came out. Let It Shine, Radio Rebel, Geek Charming, Avalon High, amongst others. It was more than enough to get my Disney Channel fix, and I always found myself thinking about these films and analyzing them to such a high degree, but I always did it alone. My friends never really watched or paid attention to Disney Channel, so I was pretty much on my own as far as my analysis goes. I had to force one of my best friends to sit there, literally force him to listen for hours as I basically delivered a thesis as to why Paul Hohen was essentially a filmmaking deity as far as DCOMs are concerned. It was around the same time that I truly discovered my more general love for film and became one of those movie nerds that sees big releases the night of. Alongside that relatively newfound passion, I discovered YouTube channels that specialized in that sort of thing. Movie Bob, The Nostalgia Critics, Screen Junkies, all great channels amongst others, talking about the nerdy movie stuff that I loved. So some of you are probably asking, after all this film stuff, what finally got me on YouTube last year? Well, it was a combination of things. For the time frame that I mentioned, I didn't spend a lot of time watching Disney Channel shows. The Sweet Life was over, I wasn't very heavily invested in Austin Alley, and oh, let's not even go there, please. It was actually Girl Meets World that got me back into watching TV shows again from Disney Channel, and not just the DCOMs as I'd been doing the years before in college. I had my doubts about it going in, like probably many of you did, but from the very first episode, it grabbed me and wouldn't let go. It was then that I also learned a little bit later that that really cute girl from Cloud9 also had her own show. I saw Maddie Rooney for the first time and, well, you guys know the rest. But it all came to a head once they announced Paul Hohen's latest film, Invisible Sister. At that point, I was well aware of his genius and had already seen nearly all of his previous films, so I was more than a little excited for this one. Plus, at that point, Rowan Blanchard had become one of my favorite parts of the best current show on Disney Channel, so it all lined up perfectly. Even though I didn't think Invisible Sister was one of his better films per se, I thought it was still a really good one, and one that had a lot going on in it. Themes and metaphors and parallels worth discussing, worth talking about. And after about a month or so of just thinking about it, the brain was officially born, as the idea struck me to follow the lead of my favorite channels and just make a video talking about all of this stuff. That inspiration led to my very first Disney-related video, which, as some of you know, was the Invisible Sister DCOM review. And even though that video took 4 days to make, it never once felt like a chore. It always felt like a passion, a message that I really wanted to get out there. Once I was officially a part of the YouTube reviews conglomerate, I set up a few guidelines for myself. I only wanted to make videos that I believed in, and never given to the temptation to just do something or say something for the sake of general acceptance or popularity. I wanted to make my content somewhat more thought-provoking than your average review. I personally felt that there were plenty of channels already out there for humorous reviews, and I don't really consider myself a very funny person, so I tend to keep jokes to a minimum unless I'm just really annoyed by something that I'm looking closer at, and sometimes my frustration is funny to you guys, I guess. And most importantly, I wanted to create this content as a means to interact with the people that watch it. The priority was always responding to you guys because, as far as I'm concerned, you all deserve that from me, because in reality, the Disney brain isn't just me spouting out dense analysis of the themes, character arcs, and metaphors present in Disney Channel primarily. It's how you react to that, respond to that, create conversations about that. The biggest reason behind why I don't show my face is because it's not really about me, the person, and I never really want it to be. It's about the ideas and how all of us interact with the ideas. Even though I call myself the Disney brain, the fact of the matter is, we're all the Disney brain. Each and every one of us, because we're all contributing ideas and helping each other think a little deeper and understand things in different ways. And that, my friends, is basically my life so far, in pictures. I know a few of you wanted another Q&A, but I didn't want to make this milestone celebration exactly like my first one. Plus, it would likely take several hours to answer every question with an all answers video, so instead, this video's comment section will be the Q&A section, since I'll be responding to most of your comments anyway, so I can just answer all of the questions you have right here. That way, you don't have to sort through a 16-part video just to find the one question you asked. And just like last time, you can ask me literally anything you want to, regardless of how personal or crazy it is, and I'll do my best to answer it. And with that, allow me to say that this YouTube journey has been a blast. It's had its ups and downs, but having done this for almost a year now, I really wouldn't change a thing about it. And to wrap things up, I'll leave you all with a special, if not overly self-indulgent version of the top, where I count down my favorite videos that I've made so far. Until then...